Welcome to Coffee House Shots. I'm Isabel Hardman, the assistant editor of The Spectator, and I'm joined by James Forsyth, the political editor of The Spectator. We've just been watching George Osborne's interview with Andrew Neil about the EU referendum. James, when I was watching it, I noticed at the end that George Osborne really gave quite a relaxed smile as Andrew Neil thanked him for the interview. He looked as though he felt that it had gone well. Do you think he was right to react in that way?
I think it might have been a smile of relief, but it was over. Look, it was always going to be a tough interview for George Osborne. He hasn't been interviewed by Andrew Neil since he became Chancellor, and it was a forensic grilling. And look, there were uncomfortable moments for Osborne there. I thought his face, he didn't exactly look pleased when Andrew Neil played him a clip of David Cameron talking about how he was going to be the strongest advocate for Turkey joining the EU. He also was slightly uncomfortable in trying to deal with the Treasury Select Committee's criticism of his 4,300 a household figure, and I think there is a, and I think also the other problem he had was when he was trying to explain about pensions, and how pensions would be hit if inflation was higher. Andrew Neil kept pointing out that the triple lock is meant to protect pensioners from precisely that higher inflation. So I think it was definitely a tough interview for George Osborne.
Yeah, I thought that Osborne had obviously clearly come prepared to talk about Turkey and to try to diminish it as an issue, because the Remain side obviously know that every time Vote Leave talk about it, even if the claims that they make are factually inaccurate, it throws the debate back into immigration, back into the sort of future threats of staying in the EU and the risks of staying in the EU, making the status quo the dangerous option in the way that the Remain campaign are trying to paint Brexit. And but you said in your post, James, that you don't think that this issue is going to go away, even though Osborne tried to deal with that in his answers to Andrew Neil.
I think there are two ways for the Remain side to make this go away, frankly. One is to say that the British government would veto Turkey joining the EU. The other is to say that the choice won't be made by politicians. There will be a referendum on any future enlargement. Now, I think they don't think they want to do that, because I don't think they want to change government policy in that dramatic a way. It's always been a long-term strategic objective of British foreign policy that the EU should be expanded and that Turkey should be a member. And I also think that there are people on the Remain side who worry that doing that would appear to suggest that Vote Leave are correct to warn that Turkish membership is coming at some point soon. So I don't think you can end this discussion except by doing one of those things. And I think anything else, Osborne went further than anyone else has. But remember also that when his first appearance after the referendum campaign started on the Mar Show, he also went quite far in trying to deal with this Turkish question. But I think unless you say explicitly Britain will veto, or there'll be a referendum, Vote Leave will be able to get the whole thing going, because the language of diplomacy is obviously different from the language of campaigns. And the language of diplomacy is all about speeding things up, making it easier for this to happen, and the like.
What I thought was also interesting was how unapologetic Osborne was when he was talking about Project Fear, when he was being asked about negative campaigning, about trying to scare people, about some of the figures that the Treasury in particular has deployed in this campaign. Instead of saying, oh, no, we've been running a really positive campaign, it's been lovely, we're really upbeat about Europe. Actually, his response was, well, yeah, people should be scared about this. Of course, we're trying to frighten them about the risks of Brexit. I thought that worked really well, actually, rather than it was impossible for the Remain campaign to claim that they're running a positive campaign. But actually to say, yes, you need to take these figures seriously, I thought was very effective. And I also thought, unusually actually, that he came across as very human in this interview and quite statesmanlike, and you saw a glimpse of what he's trying to be like in his pitch for the Tory leadership, if that's what he still wants to run for.
I think one of Osborne's advantages in this campaign is that, unlike some of the Tories on the Remain side of the argument, he passionately believes this. He really does think that Britain needs to stay in the EU for its future prosperity. And he's very comfortable with the kind of cultural aspects of his campaign. At the end of it, he said, this is a battle between, a vision of an open Britain and Nigel Farage's vision of Britain, which is mean and divisive. He is happy with the kind of culture war element of this. But I think most people on the Tory side are. But I think there is also a danger, which is that people don't like being. I mean, people might find it slightly less insulting when you tell them that, yes, I am trying to scare you, but people still don't like that kind of sense from people at the top trying to say things to people. I thought there was a very revealing moment when George Osborne was trying to back up the Treasury predictions about what would happen to house prices by citing the rating agency Fitch. And Andrew Neil turned to him and said, why would you want to trust people who rated our RBS's debts at AAA? And I think this is a real problem for the Remain campaign. They want to appeal to authority and economic experts. And the public's reaction is, these guys didn't see the 2008 financial crash coming. Why should we listen to them on this? I mean, there is an element in this campaign that it is turning into the reckoning for the financial crash of 2008 that we never really had as a country.
And what do you think the major weakness that Remain needs to address now after this interview is over the next few days as we come up to the referendum vote?
Well, I thought there was a very interesting tweet sent today by Andrew Cooper, who is one of David Cameron's former number 10 pollster, who is now one of the big wheels in the Vote Leave, sorry, not in the Vote Leave campaign, in the Stronger In campaign. And he sent this tweet saying, a lot of voters say that they want the views of authoritative, disinterested experts, then dismiss them as elite when they say Brexit equals a huge risk. And I think this is one of the real big problems for the In campaign, that they are running into this mood of, partly because of the financial crisis, but this suspicion of experts, this distrust of elite bodies. And then I think there is also these other problems, which are George Osborne tried to say that immigration is not on the ballot in this referendum. But to a lot of voters, this is the most tangible thing about the European Union. It means lots of people coming from the European Union to live and work in Britain with all the effects that has. So I think that's something they've got to deal with. And then there is this Turkish question. I understand that Vote Leave's election broadcast this week is going to be on the Turkish issue. Michael Gove made a speech today setting out what he saw as the facts about Turkish accession, saying, hang on a second, you can't say this isn't going to happen when it's both the policy of the British government and the European Commission for Turkey to join.
Well, for those who are still feeling hungry for more EU debate, there's yet another one tomorrow night, which we'll be covering in full on Coffee House. Thank you very much for listening.